The clown show continues. And I want to be very deliberate with my words here, because I've used that phrase before in a different context, talking about front office noise, talking about organizational drama. But this time, the clown show is the coaching staff. The clown show is Stephanie White and this entire Indiana Fever sideline operation. And after what we witnessed in that game, I don't know how anyone can sit here and defend what's happening in Indianapolis right now. Let's set the scene. The Indiana Fever had every opportunity to win that game. They held their opponent to 30% shooting from the field, 11% from three-point range. 11%. That is historically bad offense from the other team. And the Fever still found a way to lose. So when you hear Stephanie White get up to that podium and start deflecting, start talking about missed layups and momentum and free throw disparity, just remember that context.
The clown show continue, people, and let me be very clear. The clown show is no longer about a takeover or front office drama. The clown show is the coaching staff led by the head coach herself, the Stephanie White. Because what we witnessed in that fourth quarter was nothing short of just an embarrassment. Caitlin Clark, the best player on this roster, arguably the most important player in the entire WNBA, is right now didn't only get just a single shot attempt until there was a last minute left in the fourth quarter.
You held a team to 11% from three, and you still couldn't close it out. Now let's talk about what actually went wrong. Because Stephanie White is not going to tell you. She's going to stand up there, circle her notes, give you carefully worded non-answers, and walk away hopping nobody noticed. Caitlin Clark did not attempt a single shot until there was 1 minute remaining in the fourth quarter. 1 minute. In a fourth quarter that this team desperately needed to win. The best player on the roster, the player this entire franchise was rebuilt around.
1 minute in the game that it was very, very within the reach. And what does the Stephanie White does after the loss? She gets up to the podium and gives the word salad. Pure, unfiltered. Word salad. She stood there and talked about the missed layups. She talks about the turnover coming at the back times. She talks about the momentum killers. And you know what? She's right. There is a momentum killer in that game. But she doesn't have the courage of the name of them. So let me name them for her. Caitlin Clark.
The player that sells out every arena this team walks into. She had to wait until 60 seconds were left before she got a shot attempt. And Stephanie White sat in that press conference and talked about momentum killers. You want to talk momentum killers? Let me give you a real list. Caitlin Clark builds a 12-point lead. Stephanie White subs her out. The lead shrinks to 5 in the blink of an eye. That is a momentum killer. Kelsey Mitchell receiving a beautiful, perfectly weighted Caitlin Clark fast break assist and somehow converting that into a missed wide-open layup. That is a momentum killer. Kelsey Mitchell dribbling the basketball for what felt like an eternity on possession after possession, refusing to move the ball, refusing to involve her teammates, before finally launching a contested shot that had no business going up. That is a momentum killer. Aaliyah Boston, commanding a $6 million contract, unable to finish around the rim in situations she gets paid specifically to convert. That is a momentum killer. And Stephanie White not drawing up a single design play for Caitlin Clark across the entire course of the game.
Went out there and built a 12-point lead. 12 points. And the moment Stephanie White snapped her out, the lead evaporated down to the 5. Just like that's a momentum killer. Kelsey Mitchell standing at the top of the key, dribbling the ball into the obvious before jacking off a contestant shot. That's a momentum killer. Kelsey Mitchell receiving a perfect Caitlin Clark assist on a fast break.
That is not just a momentum killer. That is coaching malpractice. When the press conference started, a reporter pointed out the free throw disparity, the fact that the opponent had 23 free throw attempts in the fourth quarter alone, while the Fever had 2. Stephanie White acknowledged it, called the game not pretty, and then pivoted immediately to missed layups and turnovers coming at bad times. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, sure, missed layups are a problem, turnovers are a problem, but you're the head coach. You're the one designing the offensive system. You're the one making substitution decisions. You're the one who chose to sideline Caitlin Clark at the exact moment this team needed her most. When does any of that come back to you? It doesn't, because Stephanie White is allergic to accountability. Every single answer she gave was wrapped in we. We missed layups. We got tunnel vision. We have to do a better job. We. Stop saying we. Stop hiding behind collective language when everyone watching that game, every single person in that arena, every person streaming it at home, knows exactly what the individual problems were. Stop protecting players who do not deserve protection at the expense of your best players' development and this team's ability to win basketball games. At one point, Stephanie White actually said the words, "We couldn't get C loose very much at all. We've got to find a better way of doing that." And I almost fell out of my chair, because that's your job. That is your entire job as a head coach. You have arguably the most dynamic offensive player in the league, a player with elite court vision, elite shooting range, elite pick-and-roll instincts, and your answer is we've got to find a better way. After how many games? After how many losses? After how many fourth quarters where Caitlin Clark disappears from the offense, not because defenses took her away, but because the ball stopped reaching her hands? Here's the better way, Stephanie. Are you ready? Put the ball in Caitlin Clark's hands. Run pick and roll with her as the primary ball handler. Let her attack closeouts. Let her break down defenses with her passing and create open looks for everybody else. Let her play basketball the way she has played basketball her entire life, with freedom, with pace, with the ball. The scoring will follow naturally. The assists will follow naturally. The wins will follow, but only if you stop designing an offense that actively works against your best player's strengths. Instead, the plan apparently is to take her further asterisk off the ball, more off-ball movement, more curl routes, more relying on teammates to find her in catch-and-shoot situations, which sounds fine in theory until you remember who those teammates are and what we just watched them do for 40 minutes. Because if Caitlin is running off screens without the ball, that means someone else has to be the decision maker. And if that someone is Kelsey Mitchell, which, based on this offense, it often is, then we already know how this ends. The ball doesn't move. Caitlin comes open and doesn't get the pass. Kelsey shoots. Possession wasted. Repeat. Now here's something that genuinely made me angry in that press conference. A reporter asked Stephanie White about tunnel vision in the offense, the team getting stagnant, players not moving the ball, and Stephanie acknowledged it. She said yes, they got tunnel vision and they didn't move the ball enough at times. But she would not say a name. She would not look into that camera and say, Kelsey Mitchell had tunnel vision tonight. Kelsey Mitchell was the one holding this offense hostage. She just kept saying we. Kept spreading the accountability so thin that nobody actually had to hold any of it. Meanwhile, Monique Billings, who was genuinely excellent tonight, one of the few bright spots in an otherwise frustrating performance, was working her tail off cutting, crashing the glass, finding gaps in the defense. And she was getting those opportunities in part because of the gravity Caitlin Clark creates just by being on the floor. Defenses have to account for Caitlin at all times. That opens things up for cutters. That creates the exact lanes Monique was exploiting. Now imagine, and just sit with this for a second, imagine what Monique's stat line looks like on a night where Caitlin Clark actually has the ball in her hands and is actively hunting for those cuts. The numbers would be completely different. this offense would be completely different. Let's talk about the foul situation, because that is becoming a serious problem. Caitlin Clark has now fouled out or been in serious foul trouble in 4 consecutive games. 4 straight games with 4 or more fouls. And when she was asked about it, Stephanie White said the team needs to collectively do a better job with defensive positioning so Caitlin isn't put in those situations alone. Collectively, again, there is no help defense on this team. None. The basic defensive principles, gap coverage, plugging driving lanes, rotating to take charges, are simply not being executed. And when there's no help defense, your best perimeter defender ends up isolated in situations she was never meant to handle by herself, reaches in out of desperation and picks up fouls. This isn't complicated. This is fundamental basketball. And the fact that we're having this conversation 4 games deep into this pattern means it's not a player execution problem. It's a coaching and scheme problem. And then there was the full court press. The opponent pressed this team, and I want you to picture what happened next. Full-grown professional basketball players, women who have been playing this sport for 15, 20 years, looked like they were seeing a press for the very first time. Raven Johnson panicked. Kelsey Mitchell panicked. Aaliyah Boston panicked. There was confusion everywhere you looked. You know who didn't panic? Caitlin Clark. She was the only player on that floor who handled the pressure with composure, who saw the court clearly, who made the right reads. And yet somehow, the conclusion this coaching staff keeps arriving at is that she needs less responsibility with the ball, less decision-making, less freedom. It is genuinely baffling. Look, I've been saying this for a while now, and I'll say it again clearly. Stephanie White is not the right coach for this team. She does not know how to maximize Caitlin Clark. She doesn't know how to build an offense around the most talented player she will ever coach. She gets up to the podium after losses and gives the media carefully crafted non-answers, while the same problems repeat themselves game after game after game. And the hardest truth of this whole situation: at this point, losing might be the most productive thing this team can do, because losing is the only real mechanism for change. Losing long enough and badly enough forces the organization's hand, forces them to look at the coaching staff, forces them to ask hard questions about whether this is the right system, the right personnel decisions, the right overall direction for a franchise that has an absolute superstar on its hands and is actively squandering her. Either Stephanie White gets replaced by someone who actually understands how to run a modern offensive system around a player like Caitlin Clark, or things escalate to a point where something more drastic happens. Either way, the current situation is not sustainable. The talent is there. The player is there. The potential is undeniable. What's missing is the coaching. So here's where we land. The Indiana Fever held their opponent to 11% shooting from 3. They had every statistical reason to win that game, and they lost largely because of self-inflicted wounds, bad rotations, ball stagnation, a star player frozen out of her own team's offense in the most critical moments of the game. Stephanie White will call it collective. She'll talk about we asterisk and us and finding better ways. She'll circle her notes and give the media just enough to fill a quote without saying anything of substance. But we know what we saw. We know whose hands the ball was in when it shouldn't have been. We know whose hands the ball wasn't in when it absolutely should have been. And we know that until someone in that organization has the courage to make real changes, real structural, schematic, personnel changes, this team is going to keep spinning its wheels while one of the most gifted players this league has ever produced watches from the wing, waiting for a touch that never comes. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you saw, what you think needs to change, and how much longer you're willing to watch this before you lose your mind completely. This is Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share the channel. We're not done talking about this.